Life Along the Canal, Part 4. In 2005, the Park Service rented the basement conference room of the Monticello Hotel to use as our locker room, office space, and break room as the rehabilitation of the townhouse at 1065 Thomas Jefferson Street, which served as the visitor center and all of the above, was imminent. The Park Service paid the Monticello $1,500 a month for 8 months while, you guessed it, not one hammer was swung in the rehab effort. In fact, the following season, 2006, while the visitors bought their tickets and received information from a construction trailer office which had been rented, the employees' changing rooms and supplies were relegated to 2 unair-conditioned, windowless cargo containers. The rehabilitation was more or less complete in the fall of 2006, and furnishings needed to be ordered for the staff areas. Guess what? No one wanted to be responsible for it. So I was asked by the project manager to undertake the task. Remember, I'm a part-time GS5 seasonal employee. With a budget of about $35,000, I, with very little oversight, worked with vendors, ordered workstations, chairs, hazardous material cabinets, a washer and dryer, mirrors, trash cans, industrial floor mats, you name it. Everything had to be received, and the contractors were to install the $25,000 worth of systems furniture the second week of November 2006. My last day of seasonal work was October 30th, and I was not even asked to be present to oversee the installation. In the nearly 2 seasons since that time, the staff areas are basically trashed, with no supervision or oversight to keep the work areas professional. It's very discouraging to witness this each time I arrive to perform my volunteer duties, which interestingly are no different than what I did when I was being compensated, except now I refuse to drive their vehicles, I refuse to touch their PCs or office equipment, and I declined all their social events. And avoid the upper echelon supervisor, including superintendent level folks who fail or refuse to hold their subordinates accountable. Now, in early 2008, we learn that all of the design work contracted with the fabricator for the public area displays and exhibits, I believe the budget for that was in excess of $100,000, has been abandoned because, even though the ground and first floor areas were determined to be public areas and equipped for handicap access, someone has now determined that using the handicap lift brings unwanted attention to the plight of the handicapped, and the first floor will no longer be considered part of the public area. Back to the drawing board and limit the displays to several feet of space available on the ground floor. Unbelievable, proving my point. On August 14, 2009, an exhibit specialist was in the Georgetown Visitor Center taking measurements and photographs for possible exhibits. It appears that it will be updating the progress of this project as a regular part of my review of these memoirs. Fast forward. It is now the summer of 2010. And as usual, the C&O Canal season is off to its typical late start. The boat season used to start in mid-March. These days, you are lucky if it started the second week of June. One of the excuses for the late start this year, we couldn't bring on seasonal employees and interns because the Office of Personnel Management dropped all of their background checks to address the onslaught of temporary employees needed for the 2010 census. Good grief, and these folks don't realize that the census happens every 10 years, like since 1790? Can't they plan or anticipate anything? The same OPM was breached by the Chinese, and now Pat and I, along with 22.1 million other federal employees, retirees, and applicants, receive free credit reporting for life. It really is just unbelievable. Oh well, in any event, the main area of the visitor center has been completed. Wow, it only took 5 years. The ticket purchasing area is modeled after the canal boat. its rub rails serving to hold brochures. A floor-to-ceiling sepia photo of the canal adorns the wall behind the booth to give the illusion that the canal boat booth is proceeding up the canal, which was actually very clever. The old plastic Fuel the Mule donation box had been replaced with a half barrel with a Please Donate sign on it. Great photos from the park's archives had been blown up and mounted on the walls, and there's a new, though oddly oriented, map of the entire 185-mile length of the canal, and the door and window trim as well as the wall paneling mimic the color schemes of the boat. The second floor, originally intended as an extension of the downstairs exhibits, had been fixed up, but even with handicapped access is not open to the public. It is reserved for school groups and small gatherings and talks. The walls have been paneled, large built-in wooden trunks stenciled with Williamsport, Cumberland, and other destinations serve as benches and storage. Very cleverly done. Musical instruments, snubbing lines, which are the ropes to control the boat, lock keys, and mule tack hang from belaying hooks mounted to the walls. A large graphic of William O. Douglas adorns one wall. Flat screen monitor with videos provide prepackaged programs, and two mannequins in period dress stand with a full-length mirror between them so kids can try on and sample period clothing. Not as it was originally intended or designed, but far better than the junk room it had become. So sometimes things work out, but at a canal or snail's pace when it comes to the National Park Service. A year later, July 7, 2011, I was assigned to give the interpretive talk to a group of senior citizens from Northern Virginia. There were maintenance people we had never seen before, pulling up flooring and poking around in the hull of the boat. Quickly they declared the Georgetown was unseaworthy, unsafe for operations. Finally, the park superintendent had what he wanted, someone else to take the blame for shutting down the operation and saving the salaries he'd always resented spending on the boat and the visitor center operations in Georgetown. The acting supervisor that morning convinced whoever the safety guy was to allow one last trip on the boat as the group from Virginia had booked a reservation and were already on site. He reluctantly agreed, and I gave the very last interpretive talk ever to be given on the Georgetown. The $500,000 gift to the residents of Georgetown and the Park Service by the K. Fritz Foundation that had been in service for more than 25 years was dry docked, and today, this is 2015 when I'm writing this, its hulk lies rotting just above Lock 4. The Park Service doesn't even have the wherewithal 4 years later to have it removed and demolished. The Georgetown Business Improvement District has launched a fundraising campaign to raise $9 million to replace the boat and make repairs to the two locks needed for its operation. Once again, the National Park Service shirks its responsibility to preserve and interpret historic treasures and leaves it to the taxpayers to fork over even more money to provide a function that they're already paying for. Nothing much changes. I now spend the time I would have spent volunteering for the Park Service on the C&O Canal, bad-mouthing and trashing them. I believe I'm entitled to that.